Okay, Luis.
Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Luis Maya Desdier, Industry Development Specialist with Manitoba Agriculture. And on behalf of Manitoba Agriculture and Industry Development Branch, I would welcome you to the webinar, Navigating Horizon Europe, Accessing EU Research Funding. First of all, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Otaye, Denezuni Lenai, and Nehen-Nowok nations. We acknowledge that Manitoba is also located on the homeland of the Red River Métis, and we acknowledge that Northern Manitoba is included lands that were ancestral lands of the Inuit. For today's session, this session is going to be recorded, and the link of the recording will be shared with all attendees in the coming days. Today, we are pleased to have Tamara Sohn, who is the Horizon Europe National Contact Point Coordinator for Canada, who will provide an overview of the Horizon Europe funding program. She will explain its main features and structure, as well as how researchers and organizations in Manitoba and Canada can access and participate in this program, particularly those interested in the agri-food, sustainability, and bioeconomy opportunities. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them using the QA tab that you have on the bottom of your screen, and we'll do the best to respond over the presentation or on the QA segment that is going to follow the presentation. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Tamara Sohn is the Horizon National Contact Point for Korean for Canada, and she works for the Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, Canada, ISED, and is the analyst responsible for the implementation of Canada's association to the Horizon Europe program. She has been working in the Canadian government as a policy analyst since 2009 and has worked on a wide range of roles at Public Safety, Public Service, and Procurement Canada, as well as ISED. She has an undergraduate degree from Queen's University in politics and also has 2 master's degrees in an MA in Pacific Studies from the University of Victoria and an MPA from Queen's University. Well, now I will pass the floor to Tamara for beginning the presentation.
Thank you very much, Louis. As you mentioned, my name is Tamara Sohn, and I will be presenting Horizon Europe today. I am the aside from all those other things, I'm the National Contact Point Coordinator for Canada and the lead analyst responsible for the Secretariat and Outreach team, and my colleague Joshua is here as well to help answer any questions that you may have following my presentation. Next slide, please. So why did we even do this? Well, first of all, regardless of recent events, the EU and Canada have been close, strategic, like-minded partners. We have advanced an excellent cooperation in many, many areas, including AI, quantum, health, ocean, aviation, smart cities, bioeconomy, raw materials, agriculture, and research and mobility. 7 of Canada's top 10 intensive research collaboration partners are, in fact, European. France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain are all our big collaboration partners, as well as non-EU member states, Switzerland and the UK. We've had formal cooperation since the 1950s, but up until recently, we had dedicated flow of people, information, but no funds. Next slide, please. So what is Horizon Europe? Well, Horizon Europe is the world's largest science and innovation program. It is a total budget envelope of 95.5 billion euros, approximately 140 billion Canadian dollars. It includes the 27 EU member states, 22 associated non-EU countries, as well as international science partners. It is made up of 3 pillars. Pillar 1 is excellent science, Pillar 2, global challenges, and Pillar 3, innovative Europe. Next slide, please. So this goes a little bit more detail about the different pillars. So Pillar 1 and Pillar 3, what you want to understand is that our association to Horizon Europe hasn't changed anything to these 2 pillars. We are still considered non-associated, which means we are not there is no way to receive funds directly from the European Commission, but we can, especially under Pillar 1, participate under most programs, especially the European Research Council and very sclerotic curry actions. But the main aspect or important thing to note here is that while you can participate, you would need to either do your research, make sure you do your research in European partners, potentially travel to Europe to work, but not always, it's not always needed. But most importantly, you would need to bring your own funds. Under Pillar 3, Pillar 1 is bottom up research. Pillar 3 is mostly for small medium enterprises and other organizations or innovators further along the TRL than Pillar 1. But here we're again not an associated country. We can apply to the EIC Pathfinder Open grants, and in general, you would need to bring your own funding to this program. There may be small instances where Canadians could receive funding, but this only under very exceptional circumstances. Pillar 2 is where everything is changed. We are an associated country, and all Canadian entities are eligible to apply. There are 6 clusters. As you can see, all these clusters, they incorporate a large breadth of areas. But I'm going to focus a little bit more on cluster 6 today, which is food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. Next slide, please. So what's the current status? On July 3rd, back in 2024, we signed the agreement to officially associate to Horizon Europe. We'll allocate 99.3 million euros, approximately 147 million Canadian dollars over the 4 years of the program, remaining of the program, to fund Canada's association with Horizon Europe. Canadian researchers and innovators can participate as associate members of consortia. So I'll talk a little bit more about what those consortia are under these Pillar 2 calls, because the Pillar 2 is top down. So the governments of the EU member states decide on the topics that will be researched, unlike in Pillar 1, where it's decided amongst the researchers themselves. In addition to the Pillar 2 calls, can participate in missions and partnerships under Pillar 2, under associate country status. Next slide, please. Why should you apply to Horizon Europe? Well, there are many reasons, but here's the main ones. Like, first of all, you enhance your network, and that's really important in this day and age. By enhancing your network, you meet new team members and you learn new things from them. Furthermore, you would enhance the visibility not only of Canada, your entity, or organization, as well as showcasing Canadian ingenuity to the world. Furthermore, you are exposing your research or group to potential customers. So these are European customers who may not have heard of the work that you're doing. So it's very important that you work together. This creates more internationalization, in some ways moving away from the United States and focusing on Europe and other countries. Because the Horizon Europe isn't just Europe. Some of the associated countries include countries like New Zealand and South Korea. They're also in negotiations with Japan and Australia. So as you can see, it's not just Europe is part of that. And so again, you enhance your own knowledge by working with researchers and innovators from around the world, and last but not least, in this day and age, you can access the funding. And so this is earmarked funding for Canadians for Horizon Europe program. Next slide, please. So here's the 6 questions that you always want to ask yourself. Who, what, where, when, why, and how? So who is it? Canada. We're a core partner. We're all eligible. There's no mandatory checklist that you have to use. If you're Canadian, you can apply. What is it? Well, you can receive funding. directly from the European Commission. 70 to 100% of direct costs, depending if you are for-profit or not-for-profit entity, plus 25% for indirect costs, where there is no limit to where your research can be done. It can be done in Canada, especially now in this day and age. The main limitation are time zones. So you'd be mostly working with European partners on their time zone. So bearing in mind that is 6, 7 hours time difference from Manitoba. So the calls are open for 3 months. So right now, the 2025 calls are open. And then there'll be five approximately months for peer review. So the 2025 calls will close in September. There'll be 26, 27 calls that open that will open in 2026. And then there'll be another set of calls for 2027. So why do you want to do this? Well, you expand your capabilities and connecting with future clients and markets. And last but not least, how do you do this? Well, again, as I mentioned, the work program for 2025 is currently out. So it's a good opportunity just to scan it and get an understanding of it. But the 26-27 work program has also been made public. You can look there for your list topics, scope, and budget. Next slide, please. So in addition to the Pillar 2 calls, there are also what we call European partnerships. So these are strategic instruments that the European Commission has created to enhance long-term collaboration. So beyond the clusters, beyond the pillars, there's these partnerships, and these are either public-private partnerships or private-private partnerships, and they're a little bit different than the Pillar 2 calls. And in general, depending on the type of partnership, you can also access funding for this. In some cases, you'd participate, but you would need to bring your own funding. So this is these partnerships are mostly in line with your priorities. They're trying to avoid the fragmentation and duplication of R&I efforts and achieving greater scale and impact. So these are very focused, targeted areas, and I'll talk about a little bit what they are in a moment. So it helps to foster these ecosystems, creating integrated value chains across between, especially the government to industry as well, and basically having industry have a little bit of skin in the game, as it were. Next slide, please. So there are three different types of partnerships. So I'm going to talk first about institutionalized partnerships and co-program partnerships. Then I'm going to go back and talk about the co-funded partnerships. Because institutionalized partnerships and co-program partnerships, you can access the funding directly. And there may be some small exceptions where you can't. So you must always look at the requirements, but in general, you can access the funding. So institutionalized partnerships involve the EU member states and our research innovation industry. So they're basically implemented. There's an organization that create these calls that then entities can apply to. Co-program partnerships are between it's a public-private partnership, as well as the European Commission. And they're based on a memorandum of understanding, and the contribution is implemented through the HE work program call. So the institutionalized partnerships, you will find their calls into separate websites, but the co-programmed calls are found within the document called the work program. So it will be identified, it's just say partnerships or co-programmed in there as well. So co-funded partnerships is more of a EU member state, associate countries, and with research funders and government organizations. So these co-funded partnerships Canadians can apply to, but in general, unless a Canadian entity has provided funding like CIHR to these co-funded partnerships, you would not be able to access funding directly. You would need to bring your own funding. I think CIHR is considering implementing a program whereby they will provide funding for you to participate in these calls, sort of in the back end. But I would, if you were interested in a health call, I would contact them directly and ask for more information from them. Next slide, please. So here is an overview of the different partnerships. So as you can see, there's a lot in health. The co-funded are the yellow ones, but the blue, so dark blue and light blue, those ones are you can access funding directly, but the yellow ones you would need to either bring your own funding um, or work with entities like CIHR to help you find funding for that. So there's things like brain health, or if you're water for all, but the Circular Bio-Based Europe, for example, is they're institutionalized partnerships. So next slide, please. So there's 9 new European partnerships, the co-funded, as you can see, there's several of them, and then also co-programmed as well. And these are based on European priorities, but as you can see, European priorities in general are also Canadian priorities too. Next slide, please. So in addition to the pillars, in addition to partners, there's also missions. So missions are a portfolio of actions across disciplines intended to give the bold, like overarching, inspirational, measurable goal. So they're rooted in research and innovation, but they go beyond Horizon Europe. So it's effectively wanting concrete results by 2030 and working towards measurable goals. So they're aiming to address societal challenges and things that support directly European priorities like the Green Deal, European Cancer Plan, and their long-term vision for rural areas. Next slide, please. So here are the missions. There's Cancer Mission, which aims to improve the lives of more than 3 million people. The Make the Climate Resilience Mission, which is to make 150 regions and communities climate resilience. Restore our oceans and waters, so that's the Ocean Mission. Smart City Mission, which is achieving 100 climate neutral and smart cities. And then the Living Labs and Lighthouses, or the Soil Mission. So the creating living labs and lighthouses to lead the transition towards healthy soil. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a screenshot of the funding and tenders portal. So the funding and tenders portal is the EU's attempt, or the European Commission, sorry, the European Commission's attempt at simplification. And if anyone who's dealt with the European Commission knows that nothing is ever simple. However, this is the website where everything that you need to apply to this program is located. It is a one-stop shop. However, because so much is located in here, it can be very difficult to navigate. So my recommendation to you is, if you're interested at all in the Horizon Europe program, familiarize yourself with the funding and tenders portal. There's actual tutorials on this website, which you can find through YouTube. But all the information on how to find partners, where to find the work program, all the aspects of the different parts of the program, so you can create your own account and learn more about the program through or navigate through this website and get a better understanding of how it works. Next slide, please. So this is the destinations for the 26-27 work program for Cluster 6. So there are 7 destinations. So how it works in the work program, which is on the funding and tenders portal, is that you have these destinations, which are overarching major themes. Under each of these destinations, there are topics or calls that are very descriptive of what they're looking for. They were looking for a specific impact and outcome of these problems or these ideas. And in each of these calls, it will tell you how much money will be awarded and how many awards they will give under each call. Because sometimes there's just one, sometimes there's several. So as you can see, each of these destinations, they're overarching and very broad, but they are also a really good way to look at the work program and get a sense of where to find a call that works for you, because it is a very large document. But there's all this information is located on the table of contents, and it's clickable to the relevant location of the work program. Next slide, please. So here's an example from Cluster 6. This is a project um, that was in the 2024 work program. So this was avoiding the negative impacts produced by plastic materials in humanitarian contexts. So the duration of the project is from December 2024 to November 2028. It is a research and innovation action, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment. The budget is 8 million euros, and it had one Canadian organization. So it's in each of these projects, you must have at least 3 entities, one EU member state, and the other 2 must be at least a different EU member state or an associate country. Now, there are associate countries like the United Kingdom, like Switzerland, like Norway, Turkey, New Zealand, South Korea. There's a list of the 22 associate countries, and beyond that, you can have anyone else join your project as well. If they are an associate country, they would be or country that is below a certain threshold in terms of GDP, they would receive funding directly from the European Commission. Otherwise, that entity would need to break their own funding. But this is a project it was aimed at addressing plastic pollution in disaster and conflict zones. So this project focused on replacing single-use fossil-based plastics with biodegradable PHA materials, especially in healthcare and packaging applications. For more information, you can go to that website. Next slide, please. So what are the main types of action under Pillar 2? So the main types of action are the research and innovation action and innovation action. So research and innovation action are actions that are generally lower TRL projects, and innovation actions are higher TRL projects. So technology readiness level is what TRL stands for. And so you're basically going from, validation or proof of concept to the demonstration in either in the relevant environment or an operational environment. Next slide, please. So what is a consortium? So I talked a little bit more about the consortium before, but the number of partners usually is greater than 3 and scales with the size of the project. So you're generally wanting to have a balance of complementary skills and perspectives. In an ideal world, you do not want every member of your consortium to be an academic, because that is not considered to be diverse. You want people from industry. You would like the end users. If you have those types of people on your consortium, you're more likely to be successful. In order to part of this consortium, you must sign a funding agreement as well as a consortium agreement. And in the consortium agreement, it includes the intellectual property, and you would outline who owns what, who brings what, and after the project, who would be responsible for owning which aspects of the intellectual property. And the funding agreement or the grant agreement is not an agreement that can be modified, but the consortium can. So the main thing that you want to take away is that there's different roles you can play in a consortium. You can be all the way from a coordinator, all the way from a partner. So you want to know if you are have experience in the Horizon Europe program, you may wish to consider a coordinator, but if you have no experience, but would like a leadership role, consider being a task leader or work package leader. You know, a coordinator, you do get most of the funding, but you earn it. Because you are the window to the court, you are the window to the EU Commission, as well as you are the one that is responsible for gathering all the information from other partners. Next slide, please. So how do you find partners and collaborators? Well, the most important way is using your own network. You can participate. There's information days in Brussels as well as online. In the funding and tenders portal, which I showed a screenshot earlier, there is a partner tool, search tool. You can find it there. The European Enterprise Network also has a search tool. Cordis is a EU project database, and it's a really good tool to use to find successful projects. You can keyword search these projects and find old projects from Horizon 2020 or earlier in the Horizon Europe program, and you can message the coordinator to ask if they are interested in working together. In addition, the national contact points, which I'll be talking about in a moment, the GAC Trade Commissioner Service can also help you find partners. Research publications can let you know who else in your industry is working in similar projects, as well as industry associations. Next slide, please. Next slide. So who are your national contact points? The main structure to provide guidance, practical information, and assistance on participation in Horizon Europe. The subject matter experts in their field and have strong awareness of domestic and international expertise in their cluster. Next slide, please. So these are our national contact points. Next slide. And so as you can see under cluster 6, there are several NCPs. So I would recommend that you reach out to one of them if you're interested in working on a cluster 6 project. Next slide, please. So what are your first steps? So you want to first register your organization, upload your profile on the funding and tenders profile, search for topics of interest, open and upcoming calls in the relevant work program. You want to search through past projects and participants in Cordis, use your own network, participate in matchmaking events, which we'll be working on in the future, reach out to Canada's national contact points, and pursue project calls. Next slide, please. So there's some useful links and contacts for general information. We have ISED has a webpage dedicated to Horizon Europe. We're updating it all the time. And if you would like to sign up for our newsletter or have a general question, please contact our inbox at Horizon Europe at ised-esed.gc.ca. Next slide, please. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you for this great presentation about the horizon. I know it's a very complex topic, definitely, and we know that it is, and this is why we wanted to have this webinar to try to start going to see how researchers and companies can navigate these opportunities have been raised by this funding for research. So I will also encourage all attendees, if you have any question, please use the Q&A to try to put your questions. But in the meantime, I have some questions. I know you have mentioned the first step to try to just to get into, for researchers, to register, to start going to the website and everything. But what do you think that would be like? I think a lot of people just getting the idea, okay, I'm going to be start spending a lot of time doing that. And it's going to be not even clear if I actually have any specific interest here, because I don't have a contacts in Europe. I don't have specific things. I know that I have research that seems to be linked to the topics, but that is not happening. Do you have any other ways that recommend, like if you are a Manitoba researcher and try to see what is the best way to really assess that if that is the best way to access the university, or just to even to spend all the time that we're doing the first research? You're saying the point of contacts, or you're mentioning other kind of things. What is the thing that your main thing that you should be focused as a Manitoba researcher to see that it's going to be a successful partnership?
So I think that in what is very important is to find a partner that has worked on Horizon Europe previously, or has worked or has experience in Horizon Europe. If no one on your consortium has any experience working on European projects, and specifically Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020, your chances of success are much lower.
Okay, okay. Then you finally have to have a, yes, a consortium, researcher that is part of the Russian Europe.
You must have a consortium. Yes, you
No, no,
cannot do
yes.
this on your own.
I see, I see. You need to have a consortium. But if you want to be the leader of the consortium, you don't have experience, you need to find this experienced person from the Horizon Europe course.
Yes, I
There's
would
a
not
list.
recommend that you be a consortium lead if you do not have experience working on the Horizon Europe projects.
If there is a, what do you think that the best way to find this basically experienced people from the Horizon funding program to say, okay, I want to try to contact them and try to see more on that.
So there's several ways to do that. First way to do that, you can either do it yourself through Cordis. As I mentioned, are all the successful projects there.
Hmm.
There's the email app. You can email the coordinator on all of those projects through that website. And you can let them know that you're working on that you have a similar background or working in a similar field and you'd be interested in working. If you can identify the specific call you are interested in.
Okay.
And then also what you can do is you can create a profile for of your research,
Hmm.
identifying the call that you're interested in working, and you can send it either to your national contact point in Canada, and they will send it to there, or as well as we'll send it to the Trade Commissioner Services in their respective countries. Ideally, if you can identify which countries that are all doing similar research, that will also help us.
Okay, okay, perfect. Thank you. So we have some questions from the audience. The first one is from Christina Rosell. The question is that we are more focused on cluster six, but in the overview tables, it seems that this is the one with lower opportunities as institutional partnerships. Is that the case? We'd have more like an institutional partnership instead of like the more open ones.
Well, but they're all that's just the partnerships, but there are many calls both on the missions as well as that like the soil mission as an example, as well as the Cluster 6 work program.
Okay. And the second question from Christina is about research and innovation in the Mediterranean area. Is that the call the Prima call? That's the, that is the is
What?
that called the Prima call? Or is it I think they need the main call for that? I think that is the one that there's one of the focus point that was in the Mediterranean area about if you can explain more about that area if you go
The
back in.
med the our
Yeah, I think there
research
was
in
bio-based and the other one was Mediterranean area. If
yeah,
you
well
went that one.
you'd have to look at there are different calls under those institutionalized partnerships, but you would
Okay.
also and the requirements are different for each one of them.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can maybe I'll go with another question from another from the attendees from David Levine. The NSERC Alliance International Program was a good way to get funds from EU, a program that required matching funds from Canada. Unfortunately, the NSERC Alliance International Program has been cut or paused. Do you know if this program will be restarted in coming year? I guess it's just to try to see if aside from the Horizon, also the funds, this NSERC Alliance International Program will be restarted. I don't know if you have
Well,
any
we don't have
insight of
any
that.
information on that,
Okay,
but you
okay,
can the main thing is that you can access the fundings the same
in the same way.
through the European in the same way that the Europeans can for this
So
program now.
that's good. So another question that I wanted to ask you about the thematics about the cluster six, as you know, you say like as Christina mentioned, you have two main pillars and the topics that you mentioned, you can go directly to the to the website and start researching. But in the case, there's a way that the point contact can actually facilitate this idea. Okay, this is our kind of the research that is happening that try to facilitate researchers to do a quicker research, or why do you think that is the way to try to reduce time in terms of going in a complex website as you have mentioned there?
So what you can do is you can contact one of the national contact points for Cluster
Hmm.
6, and they can help identify the call that might work for you.
Okay. when you have an idea and you have already a researcher that is already in the consortium, what do you think that is the next step to try to form this consortia? And what is the thing that
So
decides that is better to try to have better access with that?
that's not how this works. So it's not a it is top down. So you need to
Okay.
look at the work program and
Hmm.
see what works with the idea that you have.
That is already there.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That is good. So if we have SMEs that that are interested in the program, will you think that this is the same way that the
Yes.
researchers are accessing? Like I basically try to see if there is a specific thing that is happening to be in the same area that is already in some calls?
Yes, and I would recommend that SMEs be part of the calls and work with researchers, university researchers as well in the same consortium. You can have more than one Canadian entity in a call, in a consortium.
You want more than one, but there's a limit? No,
No,
it's as
there's no
many as
limit.
possible.
You
Yes.
you
Mhm.
yeah, as many as is required to work on the project. But you must have an EU member state and you must have someone from another, either a separate EU member state or other associate country.
Okay. Perfect. Another question from attendees is a question from Lisette Mascarenas. It says that are Canadians eligible to apply for Pillar One Research Infrastructure Fund?
So the short answer is yes, you can apply, but you would need to bring your own funding because it is a pillar one, not pillar two. Cool.
As you mentioned. Okay, perfect. And second, another one from attendees is from Trosbera. It has said, in the case university researchers, is better to register as individual or as a department at the onset? Like just as research individuals, so the whole department should be try to register to try to make a better use of that.
So there the participant identification code there you want to understand if there is if there's already something there in your institution.
Hmm.
So make sure that you've done that. You would but
So
you
get
would want
directly
to,
from institution first and then go to the
yeah,
website, you mean?
that's
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Very because way, yes, to try to make it, yes. Okay. Uh, that's good. So another one that I wanted to ask you is about like what is recurrent? We don't have any more in there. Yes. If there is well, we know that we have some Canadians that the research that want to get in that respect about that and SMEs. If there is already a call that is getting already there and they find people, there is a way to actually facilitate these contacts that make only not wait like, oh, I have the list, I have the contact information, but there's somebody actually make it facilitating these connections that actually make it easier to actually be part of a consortium that is already happening. Like, is the point contact or is it someone else in the European Union that actually can help to make, and is this kind of an introduction between researchers or SMEs that could be part of that?
So it depends. Are you talking about Canadian
Yes,
entities
Canadian,
or
like yes, Canadian entities
so
that
we're
okay,
so
we
we're
have
working
already
on an
says.
applicant repository.
Hmm.
So for Canadian entities to know who's working, who's who, basically.
Okay.
But it would be if we can help facilitate that through the Global Affairs Canada, the Trade Commissioner Service, your national contact points. But it wouldn't be the Europeans who would know about Canadian researchers. They would know about the European researchers, but we also have contacts in Europe and can help facilitate that too.
Okay, I have another question. We have been in contact with this European organization called EIT Food that has been interested actually to have more collaboration with Canada, and they have also tried to mention that they can actually help to basically facilitate this contact for Horizon funding about that. Is a way that you recommend to go that way, like basically just to have a large consortium in Europe to make easier this facilitate these contacts? You think that is a good way, or you think that it's better just to go and register and make it directly contact with that?
Well, there's different ways to do it, but I would if you're going to go with a private entity that because there's a lot of these entities in
Hmm.
Europe that facilitate both matchmaking and
Hmm.
proposal writing. Buyer beware. Where we don't recommend any one over the other or recommend using it. I would defer to your European partners. They would have a much better sense of who's good and who's not
Hmm.
um, in the community.
Okay. Okay. Well, I was just trying to give more time to see if we have an extra question from attendees, but I don't see any more questions from attendees. So I think I will start beginning to wrap up this very good session. And of course, this all the information that the presentation will be shared with all the attendees and registered people from the webinar, and we also will have more links to be shared with the people in the website in Manitoba Agriculture to try to extend the share of this information. And of course, we are going to be able to, if they can actually contact with you. In the coming days, we'll be sharing this to all attendees and of course the webinars recording. But before we close, I was just to highlight a program that we have in a initiative that we have in the development branch, in the industry development branch in Manitoba Agriculture. And we are currently developing this initiative with various researchers and institutions, and it's an initiative to try to assess technology readiness levels on different research projects. We are having this and the goal is to basically to try to help, of course, understand the manageability of these research projects, and of course facilitate the collaboration with some of these consortiums of these other researchers to make it easier to everybody to explain that. For that, therefore, we are trying to make that easier to do that. We aim to increase the visibility of the external research that is happening in Manitoba through this effort, and also in train the collaboration options that they can have to drive the sector. We have been already engaging with different researchers in the research sector, in the universities and other institutions, but in the coming weeks, we'll continue researching out institutions to share more details about this initiative. And if you're interested, please, and learning more, we'll include information about this initiative in the email that we are gonna send post the webinar. So please contact us if you are interested. If not, we'll try to reach out to all of them. As I don't see any more questions in the Q&A, and I think you have explained a lot of content, I think we'll encourage everybody in this section to look for the information they're going to receive. And if you have any question, go to your point of contact, as Tamara has mentioned that. After that, I would like just to thank again Tamara for this great presentation and for addressing the question that we have at the moment. And I will have to thank you all attendees as well for joining us, and have a great day.